The first character I redesigned was Vlad the bartending vampire. I've always loved vampire characters due to their innate wrestle with morality. For Vlad here, I was originally going to lean into his evil side and make him as more of a mob boss type, but the idea of him pouring drinks while listening in on people's secret dealings really appealed to me. After struggling a little bit on the pose and anatomy, I was super excited to start the outfit. I wanted to keep his clothes high class to represent his power even though he was behind the bar. In the character bio and reference sheet, Vlad has crow's feet by his eyes, which normally old people have, but the rest of the bios seem to show him as a younger person, which shows his eternal youth and inhuman qualities. I wanted to have this represented in the design, but I also didn't want it to be super obvious. I settled on putting some subtle coffin motifs in the drawing, as well as pairing the obvious red and black colors. I capped this off with a mysterious red liquid dripping from his mouth, as well as fangs, small claws on his fingers, and slightly pointed ears. The reference photos also showed that he was blind in one eye. I really liked this little oddity that showed us a deeper look into his character. What was his history? How did he become blind? I ended up adding a scar over his right eye to show a more logical explanation for how he became blind. Of course, I'm not sure if this is what the creator intended, but this is a redesign series, so we're just going with it. In the end, I wasn't in love with the expression I chose for Vlad. It felt very happy compared to his more possibly sinister background, and his eyes felt a little bit more genuine than I intended. The hair was admittedly a bit of a challenge for me, since I didn't super understand the hair swoop. Funny enough, this comes up in another character later, with a very similar hairstyle. I adjusted it by adding little sort of wing frills above his ears, which I think added to the traditional vampire feel. Coloring was pretty simple, as I took most of the colors from the reference sheet. The dark wine red shirt and the grayscale skin. I did add a black vest to add to that posh quality to his clothes, as well as a crescent-shaped pin to add to his image as a vampire. I meant to add a background but was kind of losing steam at this point, so I quickly finished up the drawing and then went on to the next character. The second character I redesigned was Willithy, and before I start, I wanted to quickly congratulate the creator for all the amazing lore. Here's a snapshot. Willithy is a young man who's been working for the Astrocorps, a military space force. Growing up with his friend Felix, he eventually joined a squad in the Astrocorps. One day, Willithy was tragically involved in a horrible incident. He managed to save his friend Felix's life, but he lost his arm. This ended in Willithy losing his arm, his memory, and his capacity for most emotions. Mind you, all of this lore was made for a joke Roblox character, so once again, that's awesome. My take on Willithy was that he's left as basically a puppet for the Astrocorps. Now void of most of his emotions, he knows only to serve them, meaning he'll do whatever it takes to make them happy. Willithy's reference had him in a cloak sporting the Astrocorps logo. I decided to build upon this and give him robes with a more regal feel, completed by a professional and almost condescending stance with his hands behind his back and head cocked to the side. Drawing Willithy's outfit was super fun. I tried my best to add in as many Astrocorps motifs as I could, with matching colored stripes and stars. When I started drawing him, I had planned to put these cords running from behind his head, which would reference the fact that he was being mind-controlled by the Astrocorps. I did end up taking them out though in the final version, not just because I didn't really want to draw the background, but also because it felt weird to have him as a stagnant character when he was originally trained to be out on the field working as an operative. In the end, I was really happy with Willithy's sort of crazed expression, a sort of artificial smile and eyes that are way too wide. I also added some extra designs to his face. He now not only has a star on his forehead that shows him off as property as the Astrocorps, but also these blue streaks running down from his eyes. They both match the Astrocorps star-streaking logo, but also give off the feeling of tears running down from his eyes as he's trapped in a body he no longer can control. The third character in this series was Owen, the super totally normal time loop teenager. Yes, I got the reference from Pinterest, but hey, look, I was getting tired at this point, okay? I actually had a lot of fun drawing Owen because I was able to finally focus on more of the shading and expressive parts of character design. He probably looks a little bit more annoyed than he should, but I don't know, I don't have excuses for that one. If you're watching me draw his hair and you're recognizing something familiar, I was too. I don't know what it is with this swooping hair, one half up style, but this was very similar to what I had drawn earlier for Vlad. Of course, I changed this to fit more of a young character and gave him more fluff to make it fit his style better. I honestly didn't have a lot of notes for his design. I didn't want to stray too much from the story, but I did change his pupils to match the face of a clock. Otherwise, I took the time to focus on more simple things like shading his hair and adding highlights and giving his clothes an overall more painterly look, except for the very obviously real clock in his hands, which I wasn't really sure about drawing, and I thought that the collaged image of him holding a real clock in his hands would add to the weird core vibe of the character. After some fun shading on his face, I was basically done, and the simplicity of this design gave me a much needed break. I think I might have to start this fourth character by apologizing to Bird Doodles because while Starstruck is an animal, I did not draw an animal. I think a combination of me being possessed by Willithie's robotic arm and my desire to not draw fur forced me to make this into a mech character. That being said, I do love Star's design just how it is, but since this is a redesign series, I guess we're changing it up. I had a lot of trouble finding Starstruck's starting pose. Just based off vibes alone, Star felt like if they were a mech, they'd be a speedster mech, and the first pose did not represent this at all. It just felt very stuck in place for something that would supposedly be running around a lot. Despite this, I did keep elements of the first design, most importantly the type of legs that Star has, which mimic the blade prosthetics of runners. Star's second pose was literally Star like mid-run, so hopefully that got the point across a little bit better. I originally had the idea that Starstruck's chest area would be a compartment for pilots to sit in, but I also wanted to keep Starstruck's iconic giant eye. In order to rationalize the mech essentially having two head areas, I decided that the mechs would be traveling to a planet that had a hostile alien species. The idea is that while the pilot drives them from the chest compartment, Star's build matches that of the alien life in a tactic to get closer to the aliens, either tricking them or trying to live alongside them. Star's giant eye also felt like a really good opportunity for a giant flashlight sort of thing. So maybe they aren't trying to live alongside the other aliens at all, but mimicking a different species that really does have that giant eye while also using it for tactical purposes, maybe even weaponry. After this, I tried to fit in as many elements as I could into Starstruck's robot design. I matched Starstruck's ears and fur with the spikes on the robot's head, the giant star on Star's chest with a painted star that would later show up on the mech's pilot area. And I know I put a tail in there, but I only put that in really for a sort of balance to the character, and I later decided to remove it as I couldn't really tell if Starstruck had a tail, but I'm assuming no. I mixed the color palette a little bit more into the grays to keep it from all blending together, but I wanted to keep some of the dark and the white that came from Star's actual fur. I then added in blue and yellow highlights to match the background in the reference photos as well as Star's eye to bring the drawing together more. I did try my best to get a metallic feel, shine, and quality to the drawing, although I'm not totally sure if I succeeded. I also added a sort of sci-fi compilation of glows and hues and blurs to the character to make it feel like they were not only in motion but using very advanced technology. Although it may be hard to see, I did finish up Star's design with the space in the cockpit for a possible pilot to go into, and then I promptly covered it with a painted star. Although this might not be the most realistic or tactical decision, I wanted this to feel like when in real life pilots paint and personalize their own vehicles. Although I went a little crazy with the design, I do hope you enjoy it. My final drawing of this series is of Alicia the Mage, and since I can't draw children, it's a dragon! Yeah, sorry. Although I accidentally missed recording the first half of this drawing, I did manage to get the majority of the coloring process for Alicia's dragon character. I did my best to match the coloring of the dragon and add enough of the characteristics so that she was recognizable. And who knows, maybe she got turned into a dragon in one of her silly hijinks. Although she's a bit different, I hope you still like her all the same.